Guys, let's go ahead and dive in. We've got a full room. It's great to see everybody. Very excited about this conversation. My name's Andrew Pryfogle. I'm the founder and CEO of CX Effect. Joined here by one of the smartest guys that I know in this world of crazy world of AI, David Karandish. David is the CEO and founder of Capacity, fascinating company. David, welcome, man. It's good to have you.
Hey, Andrew, great to see you as well. Glad to be here.
Yes, indeed. The David, let's start real quick. Just a little bit of a background. I think your background specifically, as it relates to kind of providing answers to people, right, and trying to simplify that process is quite interesting. Give us a quick backgrounder on yourself.
Yeah, so I've been building bots since the late '90s. So I've been in and around this space for a long time. Computer science degree from WashU. After graduating, started a little company that ended up rolling up a bunch of different websites, one of which was answers.com. So I've been in this world of Q&A for a long time. We also, at my previous company, had a customer experience analytics division called 4C. So I've been at the intersection of Q&A, bots, and CX for my whole career.
Yeah, very cool. I love your insights around this space, David, because it's the pace of innovation around this is pretty nuts right now, right? It's moving so incredibly fast. It's also at the same time, I mean, predictably so, right? It's also causing a fair amount of confusion and chaos out there. But I've always said where there's chaos, there's opportunity, and you guys are building a heck of a company at Capacity, trying to bring some clarity to this whole idea around AI. I think you have a deck you want to share, because I think
let's go ahead and dive in. Let me share my screen.
Perfect.
And we'll get going here. All right, can everybody see my screen here? Demystifying my journey through AI.
Yep, we got it.
All right.
I think your thoughts on this are really insightful. I think this will be really useful. Let's talk through this. Go for it.
Yeah, sure. So I like to kind of start out with the big question of, okay, David, everyone's talking about AI. I've got board members who are saying we need to put this stuff in place. I've got bosses who are doing the same. I've got people reporting into me saying the same kind of thing. How do we develop our strategy? How do we think about this? There's so much noise in the marketplace right now. Some of it's good, some of it's confusing, but how do we help kind of separate the chaff from the wheat? How do we get our strategy going? I actually like to start with a 3-piece framework. First, we've got to understand what's going on in the market. Second, we need to organize our tech stack. And then last, we want to figure out what would an AI assessment look like, where we can go through our business and understand where we can go apply this stuff. So we'll kind of go through those 3 chapters here over the next few minutes. Right. So understanding the market, I actually think it's important that we get our definitions right. A lot of people are talking about automation, AI, and generative AI, and they tend to blur. And so first, let's go ahead and kind of distinguish between what do we mean by these 3 terms, what are they proxies for, and where are they applied?
Yep.
So when I think about automation, we all kind of know what automation is, right? Stuff you used to have to do manually. Now you're able to have software do it. If I was going to be a little more precise, I would say automation is software that operates without human intervention. It's something that you used to have to do now that the software can go take over. But if you said to me, David, so what? Like, why is that important? I view automation as a proxy for outsourced manual labor. We used to have to copy and paste from this screen. Now the RPA script does that. Or I used to have to log into this website and pull this information out. Now the API does that for me. So if you say, okay, automation, software that operates without intervention, proxy for outsourced manual labor, where does that leave AI? So I think of AI the simplest way. I was explaining AI to my 6-year-old son. I'd say AI is simply software that learns and applies patterns. He gets those sheets for like extra homework kind of stuff and fun projects where it's like triangle, triangle, square, triangle, triangle, square, triangle, triangle. What do you pick for the next shape? Yeah. All AI is a souped up version of that, where the software is learning a pattern and applying that pattern out. So again, if you say, David, so what, I view AI as a proxy for outsourced cognitive labor, where you used to have to make a decision or take some kind of human intuition to go left or right. And AI is a good proxy for that in many cases, not all cases, but in many cases.
Yep.
Okay, now David, we've all probably played around with ChatGPT, maybe even a little Mid-Journey, some of those apps where you can go generate images and have a picture of grandma that looks like a Van Gogh. This whole generative AI set of technologies has come out and really starting to become popularized. How do I think of generative AI? Well, generative AI is a subset of AI, and it's a subset where software is creating new content based on existing data. So instead of having to go write that first draft of your SEO article, the AI is doing that. Or instead of having to maybe sketch the outline of a particular plan for a housing project, the AI is going to help generate that. So I kind of view generative AI, I was going to say simply like, so what? It's a proxy for outsourced creative labor. So if we kind of like roll these back and say, okay, automations for manual labor, AIs for cognitive labor, generative AIs for creative labor. While this is a really simple framework, I haven't seen a lot of people honestly boil it down to this easy and digestible form. I don't know what you've seen, Andrew.
Yeah, no, this is great, and you've walked us through this, and this is why I was so eager to get this in front of our audience, because I've always said, David, that there's power in simplicity, right? What was the old Mark Twain quote where he said, after writing somebody a letter, said, "I apologize, I didn't have time to make this shorter," right? So there's power in simplicity, and this brings a tremendous amount of clarity into, what does this world of AI mean, and what are the different buckets that I need to be thinking about. So I love that, and I agree with you. I think there's a lot of confusion right now. Everyone is talking about ChatGPT. There's a tremendous amount of buzz and noise around that today. Which is incredibly powerful itself, right? I mean, the technology is transformative, but it doesn't really matter until I can figure out how I apply it to my business. This gives us a framework to start with.
Yeah, and I think it's actually helpful. We kind of tie these together. So let's go through a quick real life example where we are combining all three in one.
Good.
So example here, we've got an e-commerce support center. This particular contact center within e-commerce, mid-market e-commerce company, their top question was, when will my order ship? Classic question. They're in the automotive space, and so they've got supplier issues and slow boats from Asian country issues, and they're trying to figure out, like, when will my order ship? So currently, a human would have to go in and read those emails, then go look up that order information either in a database or in Magento or some backend system, and they'd have to write a customized email back to the consumer based on, oh, hey, good news, it's shipping tomorrow, or, oh man, sorry about this, it's actually not shipping for another 2 months, there's been a delay, here's the backstory. So this process was expensive because support people aren't cheap. I haven't met a company who said, David, you know what, man, got a lot cheaper to hire people this year. It's very repetitive, which helps lead to high turnover. So even when you find good support people, they hate answering the same questions over and over again. And it's painful. Staff are only available during business hours. So if you have a question on a Friday night or on a Sunday afternoon or on a holiday, or they have some international clients that are going to be on all sorts of different time zones, it was either painful to get an answer or painful to get people to work those hours at an affordable rate.
Yep.
And so you just had this stuck problem where this company is having to do this manual process over and over again. Instead, after bringing in automation AI and generative AI, kind of flip the script on this particular use case.
Yeah.
So think of an AI reading the incoming email. Oh, I'm just checking on my order number 230309131. Really hoping to get it in the next 2 weeks. They use automation to go connect to those systems through open APIs. And then generative AI is actually going to write the email back out. Dear David, I want to reach out regarding your order. We've checked on the status. Should be shipping in the next 2 weeks. Here's some other products you might want to check out. Let us know if you have any questions. We'd be happy to help you.
Yeah.
So the combination of these three, if you pull out, it's like a brownie recipe, right? If you take the sugar out of the brownie, they'll be chocolatey, but it's not going to taste good.
Yeah.
If you take the egg out of the brownie, they're going to fall apart.
Yeah.
And if you take the flour out of the brownie, you're just going to have just chocolate goo, right?
Right.
You need all of the ingredients in order to really solve the brownie use case. Very similar here. If you didn't have the AI reading the email, there's still a lot of human labor involved.
Yep.
If you didn't have the automation, you got to go talk with those systems manually. And if you don't have the generative AI, then you still have a human component that has to write that email out, or it's going to sound really robotic.
Yeah.
So in this case, you've got something that was expensive that turned affordable, repetitive that turned scalable, and painful that turned easy.
Love it. Love it. And in that scenario, talk about that a bit more. I think that interaction you're talking about in that example, we're automating an email, which is obviously super common, but we also now get chats that come in or texts that come in. Does it change based on the type of channel a consumer might be deciding to use to communicate with us?
It's a great question. So the idea is that you should have an AI solution that sits across your channels: web, SMS, email, voice, social. Wherever you're interacting with customers, you should have an AI solution behind it. Now, at the same time, and I'm actually going to get to this in a few slides.
Sure.
I kind of think of it in two buckets. You've got self-serve, where we're going to help the customer get an answer to their question, get something resolved on their own. And then we got agent assist, where we say, okay, let's help the agent, let's help the support team do a better job at their particular action. And
Yep.
really, if this is done well, you should actually be able to cover both sides of the house. But I got an example that we'll show in just a few minutes.
Great. Perfect.
I'll hit this quickly. It's important to choose the right tool. Automation is good at connecting systems, but you don't want automation making difficult decisions. Non-generative AI is good for finding a needle in a haystack, not good for making up new content. Generative AI is great for creating new content. You got to be careful with the hallucinations.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So chapter 2, David, how do we organize our tech stack around this? I thought we moved everything to the cloud and all of our problems were solved, right? Of course, said no one ever, right? So when I think of the modern tech stack, and we actually kind of cribbed this from our friends over at Greylock. They came out with this framework and we kind of extended it a little bit. But they would argue, and I would back up, the idea that your modern tech stack is broken down into three parts. You've got your systems of record. That's your CRM, your ERP, your HRIS, your help desk, your document drives. Anywhere, these are basically the big databases in the sky, right? Conversely, you also have your systems of engagement: Slack, email, Facebook, SMS, Outlook, mobile, voice, Teams, internal or external engagement.
Yep.
And then in the middle, you end up with these systems of intelligence. And the systems of intelligence end up being like bots and workflows and AIs and document mining and event-based automations and RPA. And so people thought, okay, David, if we just get these systems of record out, we're going to be in good shape. The problem is those systems of record aren't great systems of engagement. So they're good databases in the sky, but they're really bad interfaces. Never heard someone that's like, you know what? I just love Salesforce. It is so easy to use. The interface is so clean. It's so frictionless. We get people up and going so quickly. Again, nobody ever says that. Conversely, people do spend a lot of time on Teams and Slack and these internal engagement layers,
Yep.
but those layers themselves don't have much intelligence. They're good kind of front-facing interfaces, but they're not great back-end systems. I think what's getting interesting is this intelligence layer that sits in between. It ends up being the glue that ties your systems of engagement and your systems of record together. David, what do you mean by that? So let's use an example. Let's say you're onboarding a new agent, a new team member. You might need that person to sign paperwork, schedule a meeting with their manager, complete training in the LMS, update some information on some HRIS system. That's a workflow that needs to be able to tie across your systems of record, ideally get presented through some systems of engagement, whether email or Teams or Slack, and then have the intelligence to know, oh, hey, you filled out this paperwork, but you missed this section. Or, wow, we need to go get these extra approvals for which software you want to get loaded on your laptop. So I kind of view these different workflows as an overlay on top of these 3 tiers from the modern stack.
Yeah. I like that. What's interesting is a lot of companies have been deploying chat for a long time, right? I mean, as consumers, we deal with that a lot where we go to a website. I don't want to call in. I'd rather just chat with somebody. I click on that button. Chat's not available because it's outside of their hours, or it's maybe squarely inside of their hours, but they're still not manning it. There's not a human behind it. And oftentimes this desire to automate experiences and to drive more towards self-service actually more frustrates customers than helps them, than introduces even more friction into the process. This intelligence layer of this is critical if you're going to automate and still delight customers. Am I right?
You're absolutely right. If you want to treat your customers like royalty, you can't have the experience I had just the other day. I was talking with a prospect who was like, David, we got live chat and it's pretty good. But there's probably some things we can improve on it. And I think there's a place for live chat, to be very clear. So I'm not, we actually have a live chat product. Other people have live chat products too. But I was like, look, I want you to know, I went on your website 5 minutes before this call and I typed in, how do I become a customer? And it took over 2 minutes for someone to get back with me.
Yeah.
I was like, that cannot be the experience you want your prospects to have.
Right.
And so I think live chat is an important piece of the puzzle, but if you don't have that intelligence layer to know that person, it shouldn't be, oh, hey, let me put you on hold for a couple minutes before we can help you answer your questions on what's it like to become a customer? How do I become a customer? Can I get in your funnel? I just think you got to rethink the way you architect it.
Yeah, makes sense. Totally. Great.
Okay, so chapter 3, David, engagement AI assessment. Where do we get started? If we want to map out what we should go do, we need a framework to go help us with this. And there are multiple frameworks. This isn't the only one. I like it because it's easy to remember. We call it the MORE framework. It stands for map, opportunity, risk, and effort. Okay, David, unpack that for me. So we start out with the map where we can go through and say, okay, internal or customer facing or dollar impacting or experience impacting. Now, I want to do a caveat. I drew this as a 2x2 grid. Obviously, good experiences can impact dollars, and increasingly there are things that sit between internal and external. So I want to, everything isn't as clean as we're making out to be. But high level, if you think, is this for your team or for your customers, or is it primarily cost and revenue, or primarily team experience or CSAT? So you can start overlaying billing reconciliation, document mining, help desk automation, workflows, intranet, training, approvals. Go through these different areas, lead gen, customer portals, et cetera, and start mapping out where these things fit. After you've done that mapping, we say, okay, what's the size of the opportunity? Is this a 1 coin opportunity or a 5 coin opportunity? And I like to keep it at that level to start, because you start to get into all sorts of projections around things and dollar values. And that's a good thing to do over time. But if you keep it at 1 to 5, what's the size of this opportunity? It's a good way of kind of sizing things up. Then you look at the inverse of the risk. Wow, this is really risky. That's a 1 out of 5. Not very risky, 5 out of 5. And you look at the inverse of the effort. Need a lot of effort, 1 star. Low effort, 5 star. Then you go through, and the scoring is pretty simple. You take the size of the opportunity, the inverse of the risk, and the inverse of the effort, and you get a score for each initiative. So you could think of it as, hey, if I've got these 5 initiatives, we're going to go do these. We're going to go consider these. We're going to go punt on this one.
Yep.
Now, from the last time, Andrew, you and I talked about this, I actually went through and delivered one of these for a client of ours. I thought it'd be helpful to actually walk through, okay, David, what does this actually look like in reality on the other side of this?
Good.
So kind of starting out, is we identified 65 areas of AI that could be applied to this particular business. In this case, this is a HVAC company, few hundred employees, multiple locations across the country, looking to go automate, add AI, et cetera. So we mapped, and this is a bit of an eye chart. I will apologize in advance. The point is not to help read this slide per se, but we mapped out 65 areas across internal, external, dollar value, and experience. And when we went through it, we were able to go reduce with those scores and say, okay, here are the top 4 items in each quadrant that came out. Out of that kind of telescoping in, we said, here are the 6 that bubbled up for that particular organization. In their case, it was procurement analysis, smart dispatch, AI-powered recruitment, IVR voice assistant, automated lead scoring, and HR and IT chatbot. So we took, again, what was 65 different things where you could go spend your time, you could go spend your dollars. We said, okay, well, let's help you get down to the 4 to 6 that are actually going to be most impactful in a short period of time.
Sure.
Okay, so David, great, but who's going to actually go implement this stuff? So you tell me, here are the things we should go do. Who can we work with? And I want to just be very clear. There are a lot of great vendors who can do this stuff. There is a particular slice of the market that I think we do really, really well, and our customers would stand by that. So I'm going to walk you through that over the next couple slides. If we were going to be the ones to go implement these types of solutions, David, give me the quick 2-3 slides on how you would go attack this. So the way we frame it up at Capacity, we would say the problem is that both customers and employees need support everywhere. All those channels we talked about earlier, we got support needs coming in. At the same time, we've got a lot of emails, tickets, and phone calls that are piling up, making your support team have to deal with the repetition, the expense, and the pain of doing the same things over and over again. Unfortunately, this problem is only getting worse as more and more companies are saying, we need even better customer experiences, and at the same time, it's getting more and more expensive to support these teams. And so gravity tends to pull you down toward repetition, expense, and pain. So what we try to do at Capacity is we want to kind of flip the script and say, as a support automation platform, we will go use AI to deflect those emails, those tickets, and those phone calls from happening in the first place, ultimately so you can do your best work. So if I kind of walk through that in a next layer of detail, I've got Connie, the consumer, over here on the left, or it could actually apply internally as well. Emily, the employee, as well.
Yep.
She sends her message into Capacity. Capacity comes back instantly with a response. When we started just a few years ago, our AI was answering 55% of questions automatically. Today, we are north of 90%.
Wow.
So the AI is doing a really, really good job of enabling that tier 0 self-service support. At the same time, the agent assist is just as important. I don't care if it's 5% or 50% of the questions you get. Anything the bot can't handle, we have to intelligently route up to a team member via live chat or via a help desk ticket. Think of this as us accelerating that tier 1 human support agent assist portion of the world. Now, unlike a lot of other companies that have split out their initiatives where they have an AI initiative over here and a help desk initiative over there, we kind of recognize that you can't have one without the other. You need to be able to closely tie your AI solution and your help desk together. So the way that we do that, we have a twofold approach. One is we can integrate with existing help desks. So if you've got a Zendesk or Freshdesk or ServiceNow, Atlassian, we got connectors to that. We'll do what we can. The second approach, though, is if you don't have a help desk, you don't like your help desk, or you need to graduate out of email, we have our own Capacity help desk built in. When Angie, the agent on the right, goes in and answers that question, the AI will learn and store the answer for next time. And then Connie, the consumer, gets the answer back. The reason that's so important is then Angie never has to answer the same question twice. Right. She can get back to being human again. So it's really a completing the circle or completing the cycle there where every question either gets answered immediately by the bot or intelligently routed to the right human who gets all of the AI power to help answer that question so they never have to do that again.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. Such a... go ahead, please.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Andrew.
No, you're going to talk about your customers because I think you've done this. You guys have tremendous credibility. You've done this with tons of people, tons of companies all over the country.
Yeah, I mean, and you can see we cover a lot of different verticals, from healthcare to financial services to contact centers to big brands like a Sony to local places like a West Community Credit Union here in town.
Yep.
The big thing that I think ties all of these use cases together is that we have the ability to do omni-channel support automation where AI can sit in front of those questions, emails, tickets, phone calls you get, ultimately so you can go do your best work. So we kind of think of it as, you understand the market, you understand our terms, make sure we got our lingo down. We can organize our tech stack around our systems of record, our systems of engagement, our systems of intelligence. Then we go and engage in AI assessment, have somebody come in and say, here are the things we should go focus on. And then in our case, we actually comp the value of that assessment toward a capacity subscription. If you want us to go implement it, and if you don't, and you want us to just help out, that's okay too.
That's great. That's great. We just have a few minutes left, and I just want to, for the audience, if you have any questions, pop them there in chat, and we'll get some answers for you here. David, I'm curious, when you look at you're a CIO in a company, you're a chief experience officer in a company, you're starting to figure out or trying to understand, how do I apply all this to my business? What are the 2 or 3 biggest hurdles that they're roadblocks are gonna run up against as they start to think about how they would transform their business to leverage some of this tech? On one hand, it's very simple. On the other hand, it can be overwhelming when I look at everything that's going on inside my company.
Great question. So the first thing I like to do is I like to separate the business problem from the implementation. Because a lot of times people are coming in saying, David, can you just make my horse faster?
Yeah.
And there are things you can do to make a faster horse. There might be some Derby fans on this call, but that's not going to get you an automobile. It's certainly not going to get you a Tesla, right?
Yeah.
So before we get to how do I make my horse faster, help me with that, let's start with, I need to get from point A to point B faster before we go to, is the horse the right solution for how we do that? So that's a big thing. The other thing I would say is that there are some use cases where you can incrementally keep improving. So some data sets where we can keep adding new data to it and the model will get better. There are other data sets where you actually want to wait until you've collected all the data in one place before you start drawing your conclusions. That's a big kind of sinkhole we see people get trapped into from time to time. And then I'd say that the last one is people are understandably skeptical. They're like, well, I've been doing this way my whole career. Yeah. Now you're telling me we're going to go do it this way. And so being able to go in and say, let's start with the problem first. Let's figure out which parts are still going to need people, which parts are going to be fully automated, which parts are going to be partially automated, which parts we can't automate.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. We got some great questions coming in here, David. Question here from James. Are there costs for an AI review, this assessment that you're talking about? Do the customers will have different varying degrees of data that you're trying to ingest? Complexities of problems are going to be all over the board. How do you charge for that? What's the what's the value around that? Talk about that for a second.
Yeah. So we charge a flat rate. It's $10K for the assessment. We go in with a pre-survey where we say, okay, as part of this, we're going to survey your executive team, survey your key leaders, and go ingest in what some of the areas for automation AI, generative AI look like. We then do a listening session where we sit down and say, okay, this is what we heard. You guys tell us, did we get that right? And a lot of times we get a lot of really, really great ideas that come out of that idea exchange. We then download that, put that through our algorithms around how we do that ranking around the more framework. We then bring that back as a readout session and say, here are the 65, here are the 6 we think you should focus on. Tell us what we got right, tell us what we missed. In the case of this one we did last week, there were 6 that we came back with. They said number 6 and number 4 we want out, and there were 2 more they wanted in, and they were very close score-wise, so it wasn't like we were totally off. Then we take that into a report and deliver that back to the client and say, okay, if you want to go implement this, here's some of the vendors, here's some of the places where you can go do that. If you want capacity to be a vendor, we are happy to take that on. And I'll tell you, in the last example, the first use case they wanted wasn't something that was our expertise. So we'll tell you if it's not something we're good at. If it's something we are good at, or you want to consider us for, if you choose us to be your vendor, we roll that $10K cost toward the first year subscription.
Yeah, got it. When you see these types of projects, another question here about kind of the people that are driving this type of change in a business. What are the personas that you see are having the most success in managing this kind of a change in a company?
So the persona that's most successful from what we've seen has got to be someone that can bring people together. You can't be a Tina the Terminator who just goes in and bulldozes through. In most organizations, some organizations you can, but in most organizations, you got to get people on board. Yep. And that means like we don't have to eat the elephant all in one bite, but we need a roadmap. And it means that we have a standard way of prioritizing what we're doing. Otherwise, everybody comes in with their fiefdoms and their little pockets of interest and their pockets of resistance, and it becomes very political. Yeah, that's interesting. The navigating and managing change management is such a delicate dance for many companies. There was a question here from Dave about companies like Salesforce. And curious around the investments that Salesforce is undoubtedly making around AI, right? Big focus with Einstein and so forth. How are they addressing this space, and how are you guys perhaps addressing it differently? Yeah, great question. So every single software provider will eventually have their own AI.
Yeah.
And just start with that. Same way that every single software provider has a website. Every single software provider will have its own AI for its own platform. That said, what we found is that unless you are only using one big piece of software, which some people do, you need an AI and automation sit across your stack. And so we have clients that use Salesforce and even use Einstein's AI for parts of what they do, but they use Salesforce for this, but they use Office for this. And they use maybe another key system for this other part. And they use this for their HR system. They use this for. So if you want to go in and update someone's commission, which involves looking at Salesforce and looking at their HR system, neither one of those industry-specific systems is designed to do that. So we like to be the Switzerland that sits across your system, that we can even talk with those individual AIs.
Yeah.
Where I think Salesforce really shines, where I think they do a good job at, is anything that's native to Salesforce in terms of like, hey, we want to go pull the likelihood for this opportunity to close. Like they've got a big enough data set and they've got that tied in where they can do that stuff really well. Where Salesforce does not shine is easy, customizable workflows and the interface from which you want to go do that. So if you want to go update a workflow, you can't actually do that live in production in Salesforce without going through their developer platform. You have to be a developer level person to go update those workflows. Yep. Conversely, in capacity, we think this should be a closer to low code, not go code.
Yeah.
Go do those things of automations.
Yeah, that's good. We have another question here, and we're going a little bit over, but there's great questions, so we'll continue. With large companies that haven't yet made this big move to the cloud, right? They're still in the middle of or beginning stages of their digital transformation journey. They may be running lots of complex legacy systems that they're trying to figure out how do we automate, how do we embrace AI and still have all these legacy systems. One thing that's really important to understand about you guys is that you're not just leveraging AI, you're also leveraging things like robotic process automation, which allows for you to integrate with those legacy systems. Talk to that for a moment. I think that's a really important distinction for you.
Yeah, so when I think about the ways we might connect to a system, we might be connecting to an API, which is great, easy to do. We can also connect to databases. So if you have a database that doesn't have an API, but we can get to via the web somehow, we can put a little piece of code in front of that database and it effectively creates an API for it. But then the third bucket to what you're talking about there, Andrew, is when we've got clients that have information on a site that doesn't have an API, doesn't have a way to get to that data, we can do RPA, robotic process automation, to mimic a user going to that website, logging in, putting in different search parameters, and pulling that data out. We have clients doing this in healthcare, as well as a wide variety of other different industries. Now, if you have a truly on-prem system that is not connected to the web, I can't get to it on a browser, and it doesn't have some kind of RESTful interface to get to, then one thing we've seen folks do is actually set up almost like a little mini server where you can push automations out to that server and have it pull down under the client. I need to get into the implementation specifically on how you do that, but there are ways to go skin that cat.
Yeah. Really interesting to have the RPA capabilities as part of your tool set, if you will, is really important, because AI by itself can't solve for everything, and being able to have that additional ability allows for you to go even into broader customers. Where are you guys not a good fit? Somebody's asking that question. I think it's always really important. You've got great clients in certain verticals, size of businesses, use cases. Are there certain use cases that we should avoid, that may, that you're like, that's not very clearly not a great fit for capacity?
Yeah, so like we talked right before the pandemic with Carnival Cruise, great company, really committed to automation and AI, but they needed everything to run not all on-prem, but literally on ship. And so in that case, we have parts of our platform that we could scale down, but we don't do a lot of like on-prem deployment with no internet connection when you're out in the Maldives. That's not a good fit for us, as an example. I would say if you've got something where that RPA needs to be behind a firewall, like we need a way to get to that data. If we can't get to that data, there's not much we can do with that. And then I would say, lastly, in terms of what's not a good fit, like we have over 200 apps we've connected with, but sometimes people are like, oh, great, why don't you just connect to SAP? And I'm like, okay, well, SAP is not there's 5 flavors of SAP with tons of customization. In that case, we're not going to be the ones to go build all that out. We would work with a partner to go do that app integration, and then we would hook up all the workflows and stuff like that.
Got it. Makes a lot of sense. Excellent. Well, good. Hey, I think we've got most of the questions answered here. I'm just scanning through this. If there's any others, I think we're good. Hey, David, this has been fascinating. Love what you guys are doing. I love the response that we're getting from our ecosystem. Our partners and customers alike are really wowed by the power that you guys have developed, and the simple approach. It's super practical and easily like you apply it to a business, you can see the business outcomes, right away, and that's always a big positive for us. So, closing comments, man. What's the last piece of advice you'd give to our audience here?
Okay, so a couple things. One, when you're working with a vendor, whether it's us or anyone else, if they can't make this big, complicated thing a lot simpler, they're probably not the right vendor.
Yeah.
I think that is a huge lens and overlay. I would tell anyone, like, you need someone who's going to wade in the chaos, but help you simplify this. If you're not getting that vibe from that particular vendor, pick someone else. Yeah. Number 2, I would say, don't feel like you have to clean up before you take a bath. You don't have to have all of your ducks in a row. Get in one of these assessments, whether it's from us or another vendor. Get in one of these assessments so you can have a sort order priority list and get your team kind of weighing in on what's important. In that case, once the priorities have gotten agreed upon, it's very easy to start saying, okay, how much will we spend? How much should we spend? Where does this fit? How do we budget for this? Who are the right vendors? It's when we don't know what the priorities are, the priorities are in conflict. That's when you get a lot of stuck in the mud.
Yeah. Very cool. David, great job. For those on this call, guys, if you're interested in meeting David and the capacity team. They'll be joining us at CX Lift in Sundance. It's December 3rd through the 7th. Put that as a placeholder in your calendar. We're going to have an epic week out there again at our annual Partner Growth Conference. It'll be great to have you, David, and the capacity team joining us. Thank you.
Looking forward to it. I am a terrible skier, so you will see me on the bunny slope, but really looking forward to the event.
Fantastic. Excellent. Hope this was helpful, guys. Let us know if you have any questions. Shoot us a message. We're looking forward to continuing to introduce this to many customers. We're very excited about the progress we're making with you guys. Thanks for all your contributions, David. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You bet. Thanks, guys.